Welcome to part 12, single callback for updating both world and USA data. So in the last video, we had one triggering event, and that's when the world table was clicked. The active cell of that table was sent to our callback function, and then those three graphs in the upper right-hand corner were clicked. If we had clicked on the USA table, then nothing would have happened because this particular table was not mapped to any triggering event. It was only the world table that was mapped. So in this video, what we want to do is replicate that functionality of the world table with the USA table. So whenever someone tabs over to the USA, clicks on a state, we want those graphs to change to be the data for that particular state. Now, one issue here is that in Dash, a component may appear as an output in exactly one callback. So you might think at first, well, we can just change, we can just create a separate callback for the USA table, but that won't work because these outputs are the same regardless of whether it's the world or the USA. So these graphs, these DCC.graph components are the same three regardless if we are using a world, one of the world countries or one of the USA states. So these don't change depending on whether we have world or USA, and therefore they cannot appear in two separate callbacks. They must appear in the same callback. So to work with this limitation, what we will do is we're going to recreate a similar callback, but pass it in a lot more information. We're going to have three triggering events now. So the triggering events will be either the world table gets clicked, the USA table gets clicked, or the tab above them, which changes between the world and USA table. So we have three different triggering events here. Now we're going to send in, for the state, we're going to send in both the world data and the USA data as a list of dictionaries. So take a look at our function now. It's going to have 5 inputs. It needs to have those same 3 outputs, those 3 Plotly figures. So the inputs are going to map directly to, or the parameter names are going to map directly to these inputs. So the first 3 will be the world cell, that active cell from the world table, the active cell from the USA table. We're also going to get the value of the table tabs. So the underlying value, this will either be USA or world. So that will be sent here. This will actually just be a string. World data will be this derived virtual data, which will be a list of dictionaries of the world data, and the USA data will be the list of dictionaries of the USA table. So we're going to get all that information in our function. So it gets triggered by these 3 events and gets passed 5 arguments over here. So what we'll do is take a look at this first line of code. We'll just assume that we have data from the world. So the area we're going to call country. The cell will be the world cell, and the data will be the world data. Then we're going to use some logic. So if the group is the USA, we could have said if group equals world, but we just chose the default to be the world. Now, if the group is the USA, we will change these 3 variables, area, cell, and data, to state, for the USA. The cell will now be the USA cell, and the data will be the USA data. So this logic right here allows us to figure out whether the user is on the world table or whether they are on the USA table. So we don't know that just from this function. We have to figure out whether the user has clicked on the USA or the world. And we're going to use this logic to figure that out. Now, we're going to add in another step here, and we're not going to allow the user to click on, if they click on a cell that is not the country. So if they click on some other columns, like in deaths per million, or some other part, they have to click on that first column. And then it will actually create the graph. So this is what this logic is doing here. It's saying, all right, only update the graphs if they've clicked on if the column number is 0 over here. Then what will happen is it'll get that particular country or state. So, USA or Texas from the data. That's that list of dictionaries. And use that. So it'll get that particular data like that, or sorry, the country or state name, and then it'll call that same create graphs function. Now you see if cell and cell column equals 0, well, it's possible that cell is none. That means there's no active cell. So that can happen whenever you're sorting. So this is like if this just uses Python logic. So if it is not none, then you'll actually create the graphs. So otherwise, you have to actually raise this error in, this is a dash exception, this prevent update. So sometimes you want, say some event happens on your dashboard and you don't actually want anything to get updated. Well, you can raise this prevent update exception, and this will happen whenever you click on a column that's not the first column, or you've like sorted the data. All right, so let's go run this code and see if it works. And notice I don't have any print statements here. So yeah, here's the dashboard, and from last time, this was working like this. Now, if you click over to US states, this would not have worked last time, but now when we click over, it does understand that this triggers an event, and the underlying value here for this tab is USA. So yeah, this is part of, we clicked on the tab, so that's one of the inputs. It still calls the same function. Texas is one. If we click over here, this is an active cell where, okay, this actually does trigger this function over here, but since it's not the first column, it will not update. So that's where this prevent update happens. All right, so that's how we write a single callback to update both the world and USA data.